Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video in the Day Trading Institution program. So in today's lesson, what we're going to be going over are the different types of pullbacks. Now, our job typically as traders, especially for traders who trade with the trend, is to identify when these pullbacks will end, and these will create the best buying opportunities for us, especially if you're a trader who's trading more a higher time frame, such as let's just say the hourly time frame, the 4-hour time frame, even the daily time frame. This is typically going to be what your job description is to identify areas of reversal where the trend will continue. So I don't want you to get too overwhelmed, but we're going to go over the basics of pullbacks in this video. And then in the next video, what we're going to be doing is going into the actual chart and going a little bit more deep into pullbacks. Now, in this lesson, what we're going to cover is pullback structure, what a standard pullback is, a complex pullback, and what I like to call a breather pullback. And then we're also going to go over pullbacks versus extensions and what the difference between both of them are. So now, first of all, let's cover what a pullback is and what an extension is, because we have to be able to identify both of them. Because they're pretty much, they play a role in our trading in terms of identifying the trend and market structure as well. So first, let's cover what a pullback is. So a pullback is a pause or a break from the current market trend, typically caused by other traders or market makers taking profit. This break is a normal and healthy movement during the trending conditions before price starts moving in the trend again. So let's just say if the market is going up, right, and the market is trending bullish, we're going to be having a bearish pullback. That's normal. It doesn't mean that the trend has died, even though we do have, this is why we understand market structure. So when we do know the trend has died, but a pullback is normal, right? Now, what is an extension? An extension is when the market continues in the direction of the trend after a pullback. Typically, an extension is when price goes higher than where the pullback actually started. So let's look at some examples here, right? So what we're going to be looking at here is a bullish market structure. Again, you should know this bullish market structure from higher highs and higher lows within this market pattern here, right? Now, keep in mind the normal leg or the extension is going to be in black, and the pullback is going to be in red. Right, so again, red equals pullback, black equals extension. Notice we call this an extension because when price continued with the trend, it extended higher than when the pullback actually started. So look, notice where this pullback started from this point and ended at this point, and the extension started, which started at this point and ended at this point. It's getting higher and higher each time, hence the name extension. Right, now that's going to be an example of a standard pullback within the market. This is what you're going to see on a normal day-to-day trading basis or on a normal trend, right? This is going to be the cleanest types of trading opportunities, right? This is going to be your standard pullback, your normal pullback. Now let's look at some examples from the actual chart. So this is going to be the GBP JPY chart on the 4-hour time frame. Now, let's look at market structure first of all. We're going to be looking at the examples of the standard pullback, right? So let's look at market structure here. We could see that overall there's a long bullish run, which you can even, argue that this could be a breather type of pullback, but we'll get into that, way later on throughout the course. But let's just look at this current trend here. So we could see that prices made a lower high, then a low, then a lower high, then a lower low, then a lower high, then a lower low, right? So this is an example of a normal pullback right here, right? Notice how price just went bullish and then right after that it went bearish. This is going to be our extension. Now notice how the previous extension price extended even further than that, forming a lower low. That's an example of a standard pullback. This is the most common pullback in a trending market condition, right? Now, complex pullbacks can come in many different forms. Typically, when we're talking about a complex pullback, they have a little bit more legs. So typically, right, if we take a look at the previous example that we have one leg to the downside, one leg to the upside, one leg to the downside. When a complex pullback is actually forming, it's going to have multiple legs. So let's go over the examples of what the complex pullback typically looks like. And, you know, again, they come in all different types of forms, right? In this situation here, what is in red is going to be our pullback. And again, our black is going to be our extension. So notice how we have this pullback. Now compare this to this. Notice how it's kind of just one leg down, one leg up, one leg down, compared to this chart over here. We have one leg down, one leg up, then price comes down, then back up, and then we have the real extension to the downside. And then we have another extension to the upside, a pullback to the upside, a movement down, another pullback to the upside, and a movement down. These are just two examples of complex pullbacks, which they aren't too common, but they're definitely way more common than the breather pullback. Now that you understand the basic principles of these types of pullback, let's look at some chart examples. So here's an example of a complex pullback where you see price go to the downside here, a pullback, a move down, a pullback again, and then the real extension to the downside plays out right after. And typically this is what a complex pullback is gonna look like. This is a little bit of a different complex pullback than the ones you'll normally see, but it is an example of a complex pullback. Notice how it's not just one leg down, one leg up, and then one leg down. You have one leg down, one leg up, one leg halfway, a pullback, and then a continuation to the downside. We have a little bit more consolidation here, along with price not going down right away. You see how it kind of does a little bit of a pullback and then a continuation. That's going to be an example of a complex pullback, right? Notice the extra leg compared to the standard pullback, which again, the standard pullback is going to be one leg up, one leg down, right? Notice again the extra leg instead of it being one leg up and then one leg down where it goes lower. It's just simply a pullback and then the next leg down, right? Now, complex pullbacks come in different forms and different sizes. Just understand that a complex pullback involves an extra leg. Now let's compare the complex pullback to a breather pullback. A breather pullback typically happens after a very big bullish or bearish run and has multiple levels of internal structure. Example, right? So when we look at market structure, we're going to have our main points of market structure where we know if that level breaks, it is going to be an invalid trend and the trend may reverse. We're going to have our major levels and our minor levels. If a minor level breaks, it doesn't matter because as long as our major levels hold, that trend is still valid. So I have M alongside these major level points, and then there's no M next to the minor level points. So we have our main higher high point, our main higher low point. We have our main higher high point. And notice how, again, right, we have a lower low, then a lower high, then a lower low, then a lower high. Then we have our major higher low point, and then we have our major higher high point. But notice how within this big bullish trend, we have a little bearish trend, right? Notice all the extra legs to the downside. This is the form of a breather pullback. Notice the main trend versus the counter trend, right? The main trend are going to be where we have the main higher highs and the main higher lows, right? These types of pullbacks are really not that common, but it's still worth me mentioning because they definitely do happen, especially after a very big run. Now, notice again how we have our main levels of structure and then we have our minor levels of structure. A level of structure is not confirmed until price makes a new higher high in this situation or a new lower low. What do I mean by that is price has to break the previous higher high or reach the previous higher high, and then that'll confirm that this is going to be our major structure point. We'll get into that more in detail later on throughout the course. I just want everybody to understand the basic principles, right? Now, keep in mind, the bigger the extension, typically the bigger the pullback will be before we see another extension in the trend. You have to consider pullbacks like if somebody was going to go on a sprint, right? The harder and faster that person goes on a sprint, typically the more time they're going to need to breathe until they can sprint again. It's a pretty simple analogy, to be honest, right? Now, in the next section, we're going to be going over pullbacks more in depth. on the actual chart itself. I just kind of wanted you guys to understand the basic principles of pullbacks. But I'll talk to everybody in the part 2 video where we'll be going over all these types of pullbacks and me going more in depth on pullbacks and how you could take advantage of these and make money from the markets off of these pullbacks.